Well, welcome to this week's 7 Spheres of Influence, and tonight's sphere is media and arts, which is a pretty big sphere. And as you'll see from tonight's interview, Jago is chatting with people from a really eclectic mix of backgrounds from within that sphere. Let's take a look.
Here we are for the media and arts sphere in our 7 Spheres of Influence series. And I've got 3 wonderful people with me on Zoom with a wonderfully eclectic mix of work that they get involved with. So let me first of all just ask each of you just to introduce yourselves and to just explain what you get up to work-wise and how you got involved in it. So Harry, why don't we start with you?
I'm Harriet Downing. I am an animal and portrait artist, and I also manage HTC's communications. So in terms of how I got into it, I guess I've always been an artist to some extent, although it probably was a slightly out of control hobby before. But I started drawing professionally about 5 years ago. And this time last year, I was in the corporate world in a very stressful job and feeling pretty unfulfilled, really, and just not really where God necessarily wanted me to be. And was just increasingly prompted from various corners of my life about, potentially pursuing art as a career. So around Christmas time last year, made the decision to do just that, and coincided with a conversation with you, Jago, about applying my my experience in the corporate field of communications to HTC. So here we are, although I didn't really expect to do that during a pandemic, but there we go.
David, how about you? Just tell us something about what you get up to and how you got involved in it.
Well, currently I'm a venture capitalist, but I focus on the computer games market. So my entire life I've been in computer games. If you're familiar with EA Sports, it's in the game. I came to London in the mid-'80s to launch Electronic Arts, and then FIFA was born, and that's one of the many products that EA are very successful with on console and PC. But the last 10 years, I've been investing in startup game companies and doing that from London, but mainly in Europe. And some of the companies like Supercell and Unity and games that some of you, if you're not playing, maybe your younger brothers, sisters, and kids might be playing. So that's what I do. Because I was a Christian very early in life, and then I accidentally tripped into, somebody offered me a job playing computer games for money. And when you're a kid, you say, yes, please. And that turned into a 25-year career at EA and 35 years in total. So yeah, I haven't probably faced the challenge of, is it a Christian thing to do? I mean, we can get into that. I feel like I've been able to be influential with my faith in mind.
And Sam, then, how about you?
I'm Sam Savile. I am a producer and production manager working with pop artists to put together their live shows, streams, and sort of TV performances. Generally speaking, if you can hear it or if you can see it, I'm responsible for overseeing it. I first got started in production about 15 years ago, volunteering at HTB. And I then did an internship there, and then I grew that into the business I now run, which is Mundarzi Productions. So if you're thinking about getting involved in a team at church, I'd highly recommend it. You never know where it might go.
Fantastic, thank you. The vision for our church is to see every life bearing fruit for Jesus. So I wonder if each of you could just share a little bit about what does it mean for you to bear fruit for Jesus, to have an influence for Christ in your work?
Personally, I think the biggest thing for me with how we can influence those around us is how we carry ourselves. It's Christ-like attitude into the workplace. My industry can be quite stressful, can be very intense, and coming in with sort of a calm and sort of Christ perspective is noticed and will often lead to conversations. People say, hey, something's different, or how are you not stressed by this? And I think that leads to conversations which we can just begin to sow little seeds. And I wouldn't say it's a full-blown evangelism, but there's a beautiful intimacy from those little moments where you can go somewhere, well, actually, can I pray into your situation? And they may not have a faith, but I've yet to encounter someone who goes, no, I adamantly do not want this potential God that you believe in to be on my side. And I think it's often in the small things that will lead to the biggest breakthroughs.
Brilliant, thank you. Harry, do you want to say anything?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, obviously at HTC, it's pretty tangible. And so, but with art, I think it's really different because it's definitely less tangible, other than perhaps the joy that people might get from hanging a painting or drawing on their wall. But I think, my role now as an artist, I think it's more about that it allows me to bear witness to the journey that God took me on in terms of trusting in a plan when I didn't think I really had one. I think now, my situation now, being able to work at HTC and also pursue my career as an artist, is in its entirety an answer to prayer. So I think that actually, in terms of bearing fruit, I often think actually the fruit is more in the journey and being able to tell people about that. as opposed to drawing lots of rabbits or whatever that is.
Yeah.
First of all, always learning. And I find that the challenge for me is to be quiet enough in the moment to hear when God is nudging, hey, stand up, speak up for my people. And I remember when I was at a board meeting for a company that was doing fantastically well, and the founders wanted to sell some of their shares, and the big investor in the room said, I don't want you to I'll let you, the founders, sell some shares, but I don't want any of the employees to sell, because they're not going to work hard enough. If they get money in their pocket, they're not going to be hard workers. And I was amazed at that moment in time. I literally felt like being shoved from behind. Stand up for my people. Well, what's that? I must, I'm not going to say anything against this guy. He's the big guy. And I realized, no, this is exactly right. I needed to say something. And what I needed to say, I said, I'm not sure that's right, because first of all, they've earned it. And if you do what you're suggesting, if you let the original founders sell and not everyone, you're going to create a separation. And right now they're one family, one team. It was about a 60-person company. And as I was saying that, I just kind of expressed it calmly. It was fascinating to watch. The founders were relieved, and they would jump on it, and they said, oh, that would be true. That would really change the culture of the company. And, we don't think it's fair. And it was really a simple thing about fairness. And before I knew it, the room had completely flipped position, just by speaking those simple words. And I realized at that moment, that was God wanting to defend his people. And, whether they were Christian or not, he just wanted justice and righteousness. Yeah. And I thought, oh my gosh, I've just done something for Jesus, and it was just as simple as that. But it wasn't my motivation. Because I thought, yeah, that's probably right. I want these guys to work hard, but I realized God was saying, no, that's not fair. Stand up. So and then there have been other examples where, I've been able to cancel projects that were particularly violent in the gaming space. And it just sort of felt like, we used to say, would you want to show your mother that? No, the mother does, And it's nice to be in a position of influence to do that. I say, I don't invest in zombie games anymore. Who wants more zombies? I mean, let's do nice things, right?
Yeah.
So,
and obviously you are right at the you are at the top in a real position of influence now, David. But as you've sort of gone up the tree, as it were, does it feel like the challenges have changed, or indeed the ways that you bear fruit for Jesus has changed as you've gone on in your career?
That's a great question. I think that the shift for me was when I took on, quote, leadership jobs. Then suddenly I felt, of course you feel responsible. And there are a lot of things around fairness and justice that I think you have to carry forth in the workplace to make sure people are properly treated. And before that, that's probably always true. Of course, you don't have to be like a leader with tons of people reporting to you. Right. It's really just like that moment in the room. If you express an opinion that's fundamentally Christ-like, fair, honest, protective, it's very hard for people. The truth has incredible power. And if you can just speak the truth it doesn't have to be aggressive or threatening or combative, but the truth has power, and people will align with that because people want good things. And so my experience, even as a kid working, I kind of said what I thought was the right and honest thing. And that set people free, because sometimes it's really not the first person that says it. Often it's the second person that agrees with it, or the third person. And when the bully speaks and nobody's brave enough to push back, that's when things don't go well.
Yeah, thank you, Sam. I know when we talked a little earlier in terms of sort of what it looks like bearing fruit for Jesus, one of your passions was about generosity. Did you just want to say something about that?
Yeah, I think a massive passion for mine just is using business to facilitate sort of Christian giving and generosity. One of the greatest pleasures of my job is I'm lucky enough to have the capacity to financially support the church and others who are doing great things for Christ. I often joke with my little sister, who's out at the Bethel School of Supernatural Ministry, that her job is to evangelize and my job is to pay for it. Now, that obviously is a gross oversimplification, and we are all very much called to show up and to be witnesses for Christ. But I think some of us will find that we have an additional responsibility where we have been blessed with resources to really use those to support others' ministries. You will get more satisfaction giving money away to someone else or to another cause than you will ever get using it for yourself. The dream for Mundarzi is that we grow to the point where we make a significant indent to the financial needs of the church in the UK. And that is a big dream and a long-term dream. that's what I'd love to see us have a radical impact by providing for so many of the amazing ideas that others have.
Now let's just think a little bit about just sort of at the moment with the global pandemic, all the challenges of it. That has had challenges and opportunities. What does that look like for you? Now, I should think it's quite varied. I know it is. But David, let's just hear from you first, where actually global pandemic probably, how's that affected the gaming industry?
I was joking earlier that I don't tell many people it's actually been good news for the games industry, why more people are at home. Yeah. It's actually helped debunk many of the myths. The bad side of gaming has been overrun by the good side, which is community. People are laughing, chatting, doing activities together online. I guess the big change, I used to literally be flying to visit a team or a company or a potential investment or other investor every week, literally every week. And I have not been on an aircraft for 6 months.
Yeah.
I thought I would really not like it, but actually it's been fantastic being able to be at home, more time with family. But it is the general anxiety that's come from it was particularly at the beginning of COVID was really difficult. I found that my heart was racing. I had trouble sleeping, all kinds of things. And I kept thinking, well, what am I afraid of? I feel confident that I have my salvation and I've got a fantastic family and my job's not at risk. And what is the stress? But it was amazing, just the general worry that was super difficult to deal with. I guess I'm worn out now because I'm not as worried now, but
yeah.
We're living the life of Zoom.
Yeah, thank you. Harry, for you, as an artist and particularly sort of beginning to start up your art business, as it were, during lockdown and COVID, how has that been an impact to you?
Yeah, I think it's sort of a combination of opportunity and challenge. Just after lockdown began, I think everywhere was saying this is probably the worst time to start a business, which isn't the best news when you've just started a business. But I mean, in terms of opportunity, it did mean that I had a lot of time at home. So I was spending a lot of hours at the drawing board that I don't think I would have had the opportunity to do. But in terms of challenge, of course, art is a luxury. So it wasn't, I don't think, at the top of people's priority list.
Yeah.
And then there's the sort of logistical challenges as well that go with it that, you don't really think about, but it's all the sort of, how do you actually get the finished pieces of art to people when you're only allowed out once a day and there's a huge queue, or there's, framers are shut, printing places are shut, and so on and so forth. So yeah, there have definitely been challenges as well as opportunities.
Yeah, thank you. And then Sam, for you, I mean, the change has been most extreme for you when lockdown came. Just explain what you were doing a few days before lockdown and then what happened in the couple of weeks after for you.
Yeah, so in the run to lockdown, we saw this pandemic coming, but South America still looked clear. So I had a band all rehearsing, ready to go out on a tour of South America. Another group of crew getting ready to go do an arena tour around the UK. And then suddenly, almost overnight, everything went. We saw probably 300 shows in the diary for the year just go, and it was devastating. And so I don't think I've ever prayed as much as initially. It was just, Lord, let us get one more day, because every day I get through, I can pay all the freelancers. And then it was sort of, Lord, keep us all safe. And then when everything got cancelled, it was, Lord, help me negotiate for my crew to get paid something, because of course we go into negotiating with artists who've lost all of the income to try and get cancellation, and amazingly they were generous and that was successful, and there was a huge amount of favour there. But day 2 of lockdown, I like everyone, starting to make plans for learning to garden or whatever it was, and then I had a call from my brother's care home to say that a lot of their staff were self-isolating and they suspected that I wouldn't be busy, which was surprisingly true. And so I jumped in the car thinking I was going to go down and help them out for about 2 weeks, and 5 months later I left the care home. My mornings would start with a quick prayer with my godfather, which was amazing actually, because I normally do about 100 flights a year roughly. And so I was in one time zone, and so every single morning we would start with prayer, and then I would start my 14-hour shift looking after the residents, normally starting with bath time. If you haven't bathed a 61-year-old, it's an experience. I'm also now immune to all bodily fluids from whatever the residents' needs might have been. And so that was a really sort of challenging but very changing perspective. I think I've come back to my work now, and I'm really fortunate that we are starting to get busy. We're adjusting, we're making adverts. Today I'm in a Premier Inn next to a London location because we're filming next door, and this is the only Wi-Fi I could find. And so we're starting to do film shoots and adverts and music videos and live streams. And so I'm very blessed that in an industry that is shut down as a company, we are working in. But I think I come hopefully in with a new sort of perspective that's come from working in the care home, the amazing people who are there and the loving staff who just give so dedicatedly. And it was actually a real opportunity to try and change my perspective to something more Christ-like, as it's such a practical way of helping someone as compared to creating content, which is someone's entertainment. I was literally responsible for medication and for personal care. I'm really grateful to have had that time, even if it's in the sort of the framework that we're currently in.
It's amazing to just hear that, Sam. And within all that and all the uncertainties, and I'm sure as you thought about Mundarzi and your work that you're in charge of, the uncertainties of it all, how did your faith help you in that? And as you were working at the care home, just say a little bit on that.
Well, I think my faith just gave me the reassurance that it would be okay, as it was such a shock to the system. I ended up living in a caravan in the car park of a care home when I was supposed to be flying around the world on this tour, and just having that grounding that God still had a plan, that this disruption to my timings was not a disruption to his, and that he will more than redeem what I might see as lost time and lost opportunities for us as a business to grow, which I've already seen the fruits of as we start to walk into new opportunities. So actually, I think, but also for me, because I travel so much, it was amazing to have that chance to really connect with my godfather, who is my sort of spiritual advisor, every single day. And I've been really bad at going to church. I'm terrible at reading my Bible. That was a real opportunity to try and make some really positive changes. And massively actually grateful for that time, despite everything else.
Now, final question for you all, for everyone at HDC, and obviously Harry and Sam, you are part of HDC, whether somebody's involved in the media and art sphere or a completely different sphere, what, in a sense, would be your top encouragement to them in terms of actually saying my Christian faith, my belief in Jesus doesn't just impact my church sphere, but actually impacts all the spheres, it impacts all of life? What would be the one thing that you'd want to encourage someone with?
I think for me, it's just trusting in a plan, trusting that God has a plan and that you don't have to rely on your own strength. I think life will always throw you curveballs, whether that's in your profession or relationships or, a global pandemic. I think for me, it's trusting in that plan, that when you don't have the strength to do it on your own, it's that feeling of, I might not have this, but God has me. So that for me has been the biggest encouragement.
Wonderful, thank you.
Sam, I just wanted to say, particularly some of the things you've said struck me and were very encouraging. And I realized that for me, my faith is trying to inform me to prepare for the future, in the sense that I think personally, our family, we've tried to increase our generosity. We know that this is a tough time. We don't want to see our giving declining. We think it needs to go up. As an entrepreneur and as an investor in entrepreneurs, I need to bring encouragement to people. So I find that because we have a faith and a heavenly connection, we really need to bring love and encouragement. People really, I think, are frightened. And our job is to help explain to people, and why are we calm? Why are we? So in that form, it doesn't have to necessarily be a Bible bashing session as much as it needs to be to say, I have hope, and explain that hope. And so, and I definitely feel that I'm going to be called to help people start businesses. You were saying, Harriet, that this is not a good time to start a business. Some of the most successful businesses have been started in the deepest crisis, because you will be facing the tough stuff up front. It's not going to be an easy ride for anyone starting now, but I think we will need to start lots of things. There's going to probably be more unemployment, and people are going to be looking forward to those who are gifted enough and talented enough to suffer through starting something up, to help create new jobs and start new things. So I think the calling is still coming around the corner.
Thank you, David.
I think mine is just the opportunity of the workplace. I'm always struck by it. I mean, we're at church for 60 to 90 minutes a week, but we're probably at work for 40, 50 plus hours a week. I mean, obviously it's different in the current sort of remote working sphere, but it's the relationships that will inevitably grow are just as a chance to sow little seeds. We might not see them come to fruit ourselves, but others will. And you never know what God's doing within the kingdom. So I think just don't miss the opportunity just to be that presence, to bring Christ into a situation. David, I was so struck by your boardroom example. And I think it's so important that we are bold, that we have an ear open to what God is doing in a situation. And when we feel that he is going, hey, I've got a plan here and you're part of it, that's amazing. Like, let's go with him. I mean, nothing could be more exciting, in my opinion.
Wonderful. Thank you so much to all of you. And I really, really appreciate all you've shared and just all that you each are doing in your different working spheres. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you very much indeed.